And that's why when a man gets fucked a little bit, then he gets fucked a little bit more, then he gets fucked a lot.
Hey you guys, welcome back to the Alfred platform. Before we get started today, do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for the support. So today, an episode, I believe this is episode 3 of my LGBTQ Pride series. I'm going to be bringing you guys this unhinged, crazy video about why most gay men become bottoms and why bottoms don't like each other. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you guys this. I don't agree with all the thoughts of the person that's going to be speaking. I don't agree with every point he makes, but he does have some very interesting points that are different, that are nuanced. I want you to pay attention and to listen closely. Try not to get triggered by what he's saying, and you can also take it like me. Like, I take his advice as a grain of salt because he has his own opinions, but I have my own opinions. And why would his opinion be more valuable than my own, So that's how I view stuff like this. It's esoterical. You may not agree with it, but just, hang tight. I'm going to react to it. Let's do this together.
My channel, watch them because they teach you this in greater detail. This is an example of a fragmented or shamed gay life. This is an example of a wholesome gay life where all of you is activated, your emotions, your spirit, your intellect, and body and sex. Here, only body, only sex. What will be the consequence of that? What do you think will be the consequence of that? The consequence is that you're not going to get your needs met on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, and on the intellectual level. And because you're not going to get those needs met, what's going to happen? You will go back to sex and you will try to use sex to compensate for the needs that are unmet on an emotional level, spiritual, and intellectual level. And what will happen? You will enter into a cycle of trying to find something about sex, often fetishes or kinky things, all kinds of sexual exploration, because you're still not getting your needs met. And then anger develops and blame. And this is one of the reasons why gay men hate each other. Yes, that anger is projected onto each other, especially bottom men. Bottoms hate each other. Let's just be honest about it. Why do they project their anger onto one another and their shame onto one another as a way to resolve the shame, resolve the anger. It's very important that you really are crystal clear about what shame is and the...
All right, I want to stop right there about, first of all, he starts off with bottoms hating each other. I have noticed that bottoms tend to beef with each other a lot. They tend to be catty. They tend to follow that Reed culture. They tend to be, either they're best friends, best Judies, whatever you want to call it, or they're beefing and they're beefing hard and they're beefing over a dude or whatever. But yeah, I have noticed that there tends to be a little more animosity between bottoms. I'm not sure why, because I feel like we cannot, label them all the same way. Like, oh, they're beefing with each other because of, shame, anger, unresolved issues, whatnot. There may be other extenuating factors contributing to that beef. So I just want to say that. But yeah, I have noticed that bottoms tend to beef with other bottoms.
Another and their shame onto one another as a way to resolve the shame, resolve the anger. It's very important that you really are crystal clear about what shame is and the anger that always comes with shame. You have multiple needs in your life, and you can look at the hierarchy of needs from Maslow and psychologists. You'll see that sex is never going to answer all your needs. You're not going to have them met through sex, no matter how much you try. No matter how kinky you get, sex will never give you the satisfaction and fulfillment. And so because of the lack of satisfaction, lack of fulfillment, you're going to be super pissed off about it. And that anger is the starting point for all of this. Okay, so we have the anger. In case you don't understand what shame is simply miniaturization. You're minimizing yourself. And the minimization is the outcome of trauma, the homophobia. Homophobia causes you to miniaturize yourself, shame yourself, minimize yourself, and now you don't get your needs met, you're compensating, you enter into the anger side.
I definitely agree with what he's saying about anger and people not voicing their needs. I've noticed this about queer men specifically. is they will be mad at you about stuff they never told you about. Like, if you never told me you have an issue with abandonment and I do something and you just get mad without explaining to me why you're upset and the history behind that trauma, I'm like, what the F? Like, I have friends that have cut off dudes, potential good men, because they felt like they weren't being texted enough. They feel like he wasn't responding enough. And I'm thinking all this stuff is childish. You're acting out of your trauma, your emotional wounds, you know. So I do agree with him with the unresolved trauma and that contributing to anger, because a lot of gay men are angry, and we have a right to be angry because a lot of things have been taken from us. We've lost a lot of time in life due to shame, homophobia, like this man is mentioning. Let's go on.
Cycle. Now all that anger is cooking inside you. Some people express it, some people swallow it up, and guess what? They will use sex to come in contact with it and to come in contact with the shame.
That's interesting. He's saying that we use sex to come in contact with our shame. It's almost like, I don't want to put it this way because it's not it's not a situation where we're being abused and we want to go and reenact that abusing situation. But he's saying that the sex, we're using sex to touch the shame, the parts of us that feel ashamed. And he's going to explain why right now. So listen up.
Shame. You can't feel trauma and you can't feel shame. Those two emotions are not accessible directly. You're going to have to use a different modality to access shame, to access trauma and anger. Now, anger, some people can express it, but some people cook it inside themselves. They need other mechanisms to come in contact with that anger. All right. So are you still with me? We're going to pause here a little bit because we're going to get to the second step. And now, slowly and gently, we go into framework number 2. Pleasure. There are 3 forms of pleasure. There's the pure pleasure. There is the pleasure and pain, the physical pain, and pleasure, physical pain, and psychological pain. Which form of pleasure you think is going to be the strongest, the most complicated, the richest? The form of pleasure that's the most intricate is the one where there is a mixture of pure pleasure with physical pain and psychological pain. Let me ask you, when you have your fantasies about sex, do you fantasize about being abused? Do you have sexual fantasies that involve someone hurting you or treating you in an abusive way? Now, if you're honest, you're going to say, yes, I have them. I have them too. Everybody has them. Or most gay men have them because we have been shamed by society.
This reminds me of the larger conversation that's taking place with Castro and the dude that Jacoby, Castro and Jacoby, and what Say So TV was saying about how when he listened to the audio of their OnlyFans encounter, it didn't trigger him. It didn't make him think about this is an assault situation. And I kind of agree with Say So TV. It's hard to come out and admit that, but when I hear the tape and I heard the audio, and then when I listen to his explanation, a lot of men do have that fantasy, like we're always in control, we're always in power, but they want to be like dominated in some way, and they have that fantasy in the moaning, and they may be using wordplay to kind of invoke and get in touch with shame and anger and whatnot. I'm not sure, but in that Castro situation, I do agree with Say So TV. I think that he was saying those things to egg those dudes on to get them more into the act, because if he didn't want it, he would have, number one, not signed up to go forth with the job. Number two, he would have pushed them off of you. Like, there are things that as a bottom I feel like you can do to push people off of you. But then again, I want to acknowledge that if you're being traumatized, there is like a freeze response that some people go through. So it's not just, oh, fight the dudes off you. Everybody can fight. Everybody is not able to fight. Some people freeze and they can't run away or they can't fight. So I want to acknowledge that. Let's continue.
And that shame causes the miniaturization, and the miniaturization causes the anger. And one of the ways to release that anger is through violent sex or volatile sex, or the fantasy of volatile sex. I want to share this with you because if you ever feel like there's something wrong with you because you have these fantasies, don't. Because this is a normal behavior of your consciousness to try to resolve the shame, try to resolve the anger, try to resolve all the complicated psychological phenomenon that's cooking up inside all of us, all gay men. Being raped is a common fantasy with gay men because we are shamed, minimized, and there's anger. And that rape is a way to come in contact with that anger and resolve it. Come in contact with what I call is the valley of shame, a place in our consciousness that we can make contact with through being humiliated. Once you get humiliated, you actually make contact with your shame. And there are very few ways we can make contact with our shame, with our trauma. And that's one of them. And that's why when a man gets fired,
he mentions being humiliated is a way that we get in contact with our shame, especially during, situations where we're being, we're interacting with a power top, or interacting with a dude that's, he's just going in, like going hard, going in. He has the biggest, like we're looking for these painful situations. I will say I can see how that's possible. I've never been in those situations before. Because I've only kind of bottomed for one man, which is my husband. I don't have a lot of experiences with different penises and different sizes, but I can see how, a larger penis would be more appealing to another guy, to another gay guy. When I watch, adult films, I would say adult films, trying to be careful about what I'm saying on YouTube. When I watch adult content, I don't mind watching a Yardy style. I don't mind watching a Jacoby. I don't mind watching a Joseph Ox, a Bobby Blake. Like, I don't mind watching the rougher content, because I feel like it's exciting, people want it, it's enjoyable. However, I've never again been in one of those situations, but I just feel like it doesn't always have to equate to us wanting to get in touch with our shame. I think people want these bigger apparatuses and these power play situations because it's pleasurable to them. Like, they may find it physically pleasurable, not trying to get in touch with their shame. Just like, oh, it feels good. Like, it feels good to feel filled up, to feel like full, to feel full down there. It feels good to like know that you're taking all that, taking all of that manhood, and like you're taking it like a champion. You're going, you're letting him go in, and he's pleasing himself too by doing it. It's just pleasing in many ways is what I want to say. Not just, oh, I'm trying to get in touch with my shame, blah, 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 reconcile some anger, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's multiple facets to it. There's multiple levels to the pleasure that you receive when you bottom. That's all I got to say. Let's go on.
A little bit. Then he gets fucked a little bit more. Then he gets fucked a lot. He creates a whole identity around it. And from there, he becomes it. And that's why all these men become bottoms, because they experience not just pleasure, they experience pleasure, physical pain, because the large penises cause pain, and that's why people take poppers and they numb themselves out or stretch themselves to not feel the pain. But if you're really authentic, if you're really honest, in most cases there's pain. Some people bleed, and that pain is part of the connection with anger and the release of anger. If the person does not know how to release the anger with words, with demonstration of it with other people, through therapy or hitting a pillow, that anger will be released through pain. And also psychological pain, that's the shame.
So that's, again, something I don't agree with him with. Like, me and my husband, we were watching adult content one day, and this dude was taking this massive dildo, and he kept crying out for poppers. Like, he would, hit the popper, and then, 5 minutes later, poppers, poppers, poppers. And we like laugh about it. We use it as a joke every now and then, an inside joke between us. Poppers, poppers, poppers. But to me, I didn't see it as like, oh, he's releasing anger by taking this massive dildo. For me, it's like, it's just pleasure. Like, he's fantasizing, oh, what if this is a real person? Instead, it's a dildo on a machine, that's doing the work for him. But like, he's fantasizing that he's in a real encounter with a real person, and he's actually receiving physical pleasure. It's not like this psychological, emotional, like, process that we are undergoing when we're having sex. Does that make sense? But this guy is saying that it is. So
the valley of shame that's reachable through volatile sex, and often volatile sex happens when a top is penetrating a bottom, especially if that penetration involves large objects, large penises. it is almost impossible, it is impossible to compete with that kind of pleasure. The reason why you can't compete with pain is because it evokes psychological dimensions that can never be present during normal sex without pain. As a side note, I do not participate with anal intercourse, either way, as a bottom or as a top, because of what I've learned about this and because of what I'm sharing with you. I don't want to be either on the receiving end or on the active end as a sadist or masochist. Because if we are honest, whenever there's pain, there's always a dynamic of...
So every interaction between men is not a sadist and a masochist interaction like this man is saying. I really don't see it that deep, and I think he's going to explain why he sees it so deeply, but it's not that deep. It's like, oh, I'm feeling this dude's vibe, he's feeling me, like, we want to connect, we want to be intimate, and that's just what it is. It's like we want to connect, we want to have sex, we want to please each other, like, that's what it is. Let's let him continue.
Sadomasochism. And that opens up a Pandora box to another video, and I will create it in the future, because all of these dynamics are happening for everybody all the time. The moment we bring a psychological microscope and actually look at what's happening, in most cases in our interactions with each other, there's pain, either physical or psychological, and there's re-exposure to trauma in most cases. And there is a relationship that we can call out when there is this sadomasochistic pattern. That's the trauma bonding. That's why once a gay man enters into their bottom identity, no matter what you tell him, no matter how you try to convince him with education about sex, he does not want to do it because he is no longer himself. He becomes a different person and he experiences cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is this...
Like, what bottoms are you talking to? Like, who are you talking to? Because men ebb and flow out of like their sexual desires. Like, those change throughout time. Like, I know dudes that were bottoms for like maybe 5 years, and they discovered being top was cool, or they met a new dude and discovered this position or discovered that. Like, for example, in my case, I was a strict top before I met my husband, because that's what my boyfriends at those times, that's what they wanted from me. They wanted the fantasy from me. They didn't give me the opportunity to explore myself, to even voice my sexual desires. I wasn't even allowed to tell these dudes what I liked sexually because I didn't know I had the right to. Like, I was literally just a body being used by my boyfriends at that time, and I didn't know it. It's not until I met my husband that I realized, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be coming or having an orgasm during sex. I'm supposed to be experiencing that. I'm supposed to be receiving pleasure from sex, because I did not know that I was supposed to prior to meeting my husband. We'll let him go on.
Perturbation of mind, kind of like an earthquake that happens whenever we are in the chronic state of trauma. Similar to post-traumatic stress disorder, but post-traumatic stress disorder often happens with acute trauma. Here we're talking about a combination of acute trauma through sadomasochistic sex with large penises, pain of the body, and the neglect to stop it, and a chronic trauma, which is the consistent minimization that's happening when gay men interact with one another. As a result of all of this, we enter into cognitive dissonance. Now, a lot of these concepts are advanced concepts from psychology. I will be talking about them over and over and over in the next several videos, because all of you, once you understand all of this, you'll be able to dissolve some of these very complicated states of mind in your own consciousness. In my life, I had a lot of teachers that helped me escape the boundary of trauma and shame. And I also had met interesting people that gave me a taste of psychedelics. When you do mushrooms, for example, you're able to enter into pure love consciousness. When you are in a state of pure love consciousness, you are able to look at yourself and recognize your trauma, recognize your shame, and you are able to realize that there is so much more in this situation to gay life than what we are normally used.
I have heard of people having experiences like this when they consume marijuana, mushrooms. They're able to see themselves in third person. They're able to more clearly remember their trauma, their painful memories from childhood and things like that. But yeah, what he's saying about that is true. And I just want to highlight that his advice is coming from his experiences on mushrooms. So that's why I want to, tell you guys to be cautious about how much you take in from this video, because his advice, once again, is coming from being on drugs. Like, this is what he realized when he was high on drugs. So I don't take his words as Bible. Like, I don't take his words as facts. These are purely opinions and beliefs. They are not factual. There is no evidence to support his claims. Therefore, they cannot be called facts.
Used to experiencing. And this is why my communication often is different with you, because I come from a space of that higher consciousness of gay life. I no longer participate in anal intercourse because of the dynamics I'm sharing with you today. And I entered into that pure love consciousness with help of mushrooms. In fact, it is a custom in my life. Every year for my birthday, I treat myself to a mushroom session.
You can have pure love consciousness and enjoy penetrative sex with your partner at the same time. I feel like this man, we need the context behind his beliefs. What was his history? What kind of lifestyle was he living before he had these epiphanies? Because I'm pretty sure he was participating in hookup culture. He was doing the anonymous sex thing, the grinder, all the bad stuff, all the toxic stuff that people in our community do right before they want to tell other gays to, they prayed the gay away, they're now a Christian, they turned away from the homosexual lifestyle. It's so deviant, it's so bad. But no, being homosexual and living out and proud and having a partner, being married, having sex with a man, that's not bad. What's bad is the constant clubbing, the anonymous hookups, the constant hookups, the drug culture, linking drugs with sex, like going out all day, partying, refusing to tie yourself down with the relationship, refusing to commit to one man, refusing to build a foundation with another human being and just contribute to society as a couple. That's what's really missing from our lifestyles. Like, literally, we are way too shallow. All we want to do is hook up, smash the next best thing, and keep it moving and keep our money to ourselves because we're afraid to be hurt, we're afraid to do this, we're afraid to do that. That's just what I've noticed with our community.
Frank and I did mushroom sessions, and his life was also transformed. Now, I'm not suggesting you should do this because this can get complex, especially if you have been traumatized or shamed. I advise you talk to a psychologist before you do that, or someone who knows how to guide you, because this can get quite complex on its own. But this is how I reached a state of higher consciousness, and I come to all of you with ideas from that state of higher consciousness. And my understanding of trauma and shame is very thorough, very rich, because I was able to look at it as an observer and recognize my own patterns of dysfunction lasting many years. And I was able to come up with the answer to that, which is the Buddhist teachings of non-duality. In my opinion, are most powerful. Mindfulness, meditation, distancing yourself from your own sensation of trauma and shame, and then reconnecting yourself to that pure innocence that's inside you. But that's a topic for a different video. So now I hope that you understand why bottom men are remaining bottoms forever, why it's so difficult to break that cycle for them. It's because there is pain that's physical and psychological, that's part of the intercourse, and also that there is cognitive dissonance, perturbation of the mind, where there's no more logic, no more reason. They are in a state of mind that is psychologically like an earthquake, like a chronic earthquake that's going on all the time, when you interact with them, you can't interact with them normally. The only way they're going to welcome you to your life is if you represent to them a mechanism to reach that anger, that shame, and that trauma that's inside them. They have so much repulsion against one another because part of their consciousness is projecting what they're really feeling about themselves. The internal self-shaming mechanism is projected onto one another. I hope, my friends, that you take this seriously, what I'm sharing with you in this video, because this is heavy, heavy stuff. I come to you with compassion. I come to you with love. I used to be in that world. If I escaped it and I love my life and I have amazing lovers and friends, so can you.
Saying that basically bottoms, they are only interested in dudes they feel like are large enough, big enough, whatever, that can help them tap into that shame because of, the top's penis size. Like, that's why bottoms always want the biggest penis, because it helps them to tap into their shame. You guys tell me. Again, as a bottom, as a top, I don't have a lot of sexual experience, so I really want to hear you guys' thoughts, but I don't believe that. I believe they feel like the bigger the penis, the more masculine the dude is, and the more masculine the experience is for them, and that turns them on in their mind, because it's like, oh bro, I'm taking a man, like this is a real man, and I'm doing it, and it feels good. If it felt so painful, this is what I want to say. If it felt so painful, they would not be doing it, number one. Because number two, I believe that they are getting, immense pleasure from the activity. But number three is like, you can always tell the top to stop going so hard. You can control the flow if you get on top. Like, there are things that you can do to kind of like not make yourself like this stack of potatoes laying there getting banged out. Does that make sense? Like, it's not like we're both not participating and interacting with each other and feeding off each other's energies during sex, So I don't agree with his point about how bottoms are always just, subconsciously seeking the biggest penis because that can help them tap into their shame and their anger. All right, you guys, so I'm going to end the video right there. I do agree with his last point. I do feel like, hookup culture is destroying our community. Not valuing each other is destroying our community. Not linking up and building lasting relationships, building each other up, and, building families, and, helping each other out, and just not coming together is really hurting us in terms of not doing so romantically is really hurting us, and that's why I get on my channel and I advocate for you guys to get married, to stop hooking up, to commit to one man, not to be involved in the OnlyFans culture and the toxic, app culture that's out here, because I do feel like if you want to have a healthy relationship with the man, you have to do it in healthy ways. And then I'm seeing y'all, have this unhealthy lifestyle. I'm not talking about being gay at all. I mean, like clubbing, drinking, mixing drugs and sex, chemsex, doing all this stuff, and then coming back later, like I said, and blaming the entire LGBTQ plus community for what you decide to do, your choices, and the way that you decide to live your life. Because every LGBTQ plus dude, man, woman, whatever, non-binary person, they're not even at the clubs like that. Some of us stay at home, some of us are married, some of us have kids to raise, we have businesses to run, we have jobs to go to, we have, we're very traditional, conservative. Like, every gay man is not out here living that kind of life. And I think we need to highlight that and really honor those type of gay dudes, because we want to show younger gay people that there are alternatives. Like, you don't have to go down this path of self-destruction. Like, there are alternatives out here. This is what a healthy relationship looks like with two men. This is what a healthy relationship looks like with two women. This is what a healthy relationship looks like with, a straight man and a trans woman. Like, we want to show people that we are not just these stereotypes and what they see on movies and TV. So it's important that we do that. And thank you guys for the support and not getting so offended when I do come on and encourage you guys to link up, be monogamous, get married, and all those traditional things, because I truly feel like we need to do so in this day and age. But yeah, man, this man is trying to sell something. Let's not forget about that. He's trying to sell his course, get views on his channel. Also, his points and opinions came from being high on mushrooms. So we need to remember that as well. Again, his opinions and beliefs did not come with evidence, therefore they cannot be called facts. What do you guys think? Do you think that most gay men end up becoming bottoms, eventually in the community? I don't believe that, but he does. Do you think most gay men become bottoms eventually in the community? How do you feel about bottom to bottom interactions? Do you feel like they don't like each other? Do you feel like they're always fighting? There's the re culture. I'm starting to see bottoms get together and have relationships now. Like, femme dudes are coming together having relationships. That doesn't mean that they're bottoming, but like, he's painting our community with a large brush, and that brush may not be accurate and the right apparatus to use to talk about this situation. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please support the channel excuse me, by liking and subscribing. It's free, you guys. Please help me out by subscribing at least. I'm going to give you guys many more episodes of the Pride series. I hope to bring some collaborations. I'm launching some other stuff as well, so be on the lookout. Subscribe so you can stay in the loop. All right, you guys, well, take care and peace.